My name is Asher, and at 32 years old I've always been the family member everyone could count on. For years I've supported my parents financially, from their mortgage to medical bills, all while believing family comes first. I never imagined the Christmas when everything would change, when a simple text claiming celebrations were canceled would lead me to discover the truth. That night, scrolling through social media, I saw what family really meant to them, and it wasn't me. Before I tell you how I discovered my family's betrayal, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If my story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself when family takes advantage. Growing up in suburban Connecticut family meant everything to me. Our modest two-story colonial in Fairfield County was always filled with laughter and warmth, despite not having much money. The creaky wooden floors and slightly outdated kitchen never bothered us because we had each other. My parents, Robert and Nancy, worked hard to give me and my younger sister, Jessica, a good life. Dad worked at a manufacturing plant, making automotive parts, often taking overtime shifts during holidays. Mom taught third grade at the local elementary school, the same one Jessica and I attended as kids. We weren't rich, but we had each other, and that seemed like enough. Summer barbecues in our small backyard, weekend trips to the community pool, and holiday gatherings, where everyone brought a dish to share. These were the foundations of my childhood. I learned early on that showing up for family was non-negotiable. When Grandma needed someone to mow her lawn, I was there. When Uncle Pete needed help moving, all the cousins pitched in. That's just what family did. I was the first in my family to go to college. Neither of my parents had degrees, making my acceptance to the University of Connecticut a major celebration. Dad proudly drove me to campus in our aging station wagon, telling everyone we met that his son was going to be somebody. I worked multiple jobs: morning shifts at the campus coffee shop, evening hours at the library, weekend gigs doing computer repair, all while maintaining a full course load in computer science. The late nights studying and early mornings serving coffee paid off when I landed a junior developer position at a Boston tech startup right after graduation. I still remember calling my parents with the news. "Mom, Dad, I got the job, $60,000 a year plus benefits. That's more than both your parents make combined." Dad had said, his voice a mixture of pride and something else I couldn't identify at the time. "You're really moving up in the world, son." Within 5 years, I had climbed the corporate ladder and secured a senior software engineering position at Tech Fusion, one of the biggest tech companies in Boston. My salary had more than tripled and bonuses became regular occurrences. I bought a sleek downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and city views, a far cry from our modest family home. Every time my parents visited, they seemed both proud and slightly uncomfortable, touching the granite countertops and leather furniture as if they might break them. My career success coincided with my dad's unfortunate layoff when Northeastern Manufacturing closed its plant 5 years ago. After 30 years with the company, he was let go with just 3 months severance pay. At 57, with a high school education and skills specific to a dying industry, he struggled to find comparable work in a changing economy. Mom's teaching salary of $45,000 wasn't enough to cover their expenses, especially with the mortgage on the house I grew up in, still having 12 years of payments left. Without hesitation, I stepped in to help. "It's just temporary, son," Dad assured me when I first offered to pay their $2,000 monthly mortgage, "just until I get back on my feet." I believed him completely. My father had always been a hard worker, someone who took pride in providing for his family. I assumed he would find another job within months, and my financial assistance would be a brief bridge during a difficult time. That temporary arrangement quickly became permanent. Dad's job search seemed to lose momentum after a few rejections. "Nobody wants to hire someone my age," he would say whenever I asked about interviews or applications. Soon I was covering not just the mortgage but also their property taxes, utilities, car payments, and even the occasional vacation. When Dad needed knee surgery 2 years ago, their insurance didn't cover the full cost, so I paid the $8,000 difference without complaining. When Mom wanted to visit her sister in Florida, I bought the plane tickets. When the roof needed repairs last spring, I covered the $12,000 bill. "You're such a blessing," Mom would say, hugging me tightly. "We don't know what we'd do without you." Those words made me feel important, needed, valuable. In a way, I enjoyed being the provider, the one everyone could rely on. It gave me a sense of purpose beyond my job and personal achievements. My financial support extended to my sister Jessica, too. 2 years younger than me, she had followed a different path, dropping out of community college and working various retail jobs. When she needed a down payment for her car, I gave her $5,000. When she complained about her student loans from her abbreviated college experience, I started making payments on those as well. "You're the best brother ever," she would gush after each financial rescue, though the calls and texts between those moments were increasingly rare. My cousin Tyler was the only family member who never asked me for money, though he was always happy to attend any event I funded. We had been close as kids, building forts in the backyard and playing video games for hours in the basement. As adults, we maintained a friendly relationship, connecting mainly through social media and family gatherings. Christmas had become my special tradition. For the past 3 years, I'd hosted the entire family at my downtown Boston apartment. I went all out, catered meals from top restaurants, personalized gifts for everyone, even flying in my grandparents from Arizona. Last year alone, I spent over $6,000 on gifts and food. Not that anyone seemed to notice or thank me specifically. I told myself I did it because I loved seeing everyone happy and together, but part of me craved the appreciation and acknowledgement that rarely came. The previous Christmas had been elaborate. I hired a private chef to prepare a gourmet dinner, bought everyone exactly what they had mentioned, wanting throughout the year, and even hired a professional photographer to capture the day. Looking back, I realize most of the photos showed my family opening gifts or eating the expensive meal, with few showing actual meaningful interactions or genuine emotional connections. This year, I had already ordered custom stockings embroidered with everyone's names from an artisan I found online. I purchased most of the gifts by early December, including a new tablet for Dad, designer boots for Mom, and the expensive gaming console Jessica had been hinting about for months. I was planning a prime rib dinner with all the trimmings, and had even hired the same photographer to capture what I hoped would be perfect family memories. Then on December 18th, while finalizing holiday plans at work, I received the text from Dad that would change everything. "Asher, we've decided to cancel Christmas this year. Money's too tight and we're just staying in. Don't worry about gifts or anything. We can do something small in January, maybe." I immediately called, concerned about what financial emergency might have prompted this sudden cancellation. "Is everything okay? Do you need help with something?" I asked. No, Dad assured me. "We're fine. Just feeling the pinch this year. And your mother and I decided we want something low-key. Just quiet time at home, maybe watch some movies." I was disappointed but understanding. Times were tough for many people, and if my family needed to scale back celebrations, I respected that. I offered to still host or at least drop by with gifts, but Mom texted back that they just needed quiet time this year and would see me after the holidays. "Are you sure?" I pressed. "I could just come for a few hours. I've already got all the gifts." "We really just want alone time this year," Mom insisted. "You work so hard, Asher. Take the day for yourself. Relax and enjoy the quiet." So on December 25th, while families everywhere gathered to celebrate, I sat alone in my apartment. The city view that usually energized me seemed empty and cold. I ordered Chinese takeout from the only open restaurant in my neighborhood, watching Christmas movies and occasionally checking my phone. I sent cheerful texts to my family throughout the day. "Merry Christmas. Hope your quiet day is restful. Watching Home Alone and thinking of you all. Just wanted to say, I love you guys." The responses when they came were brief and oddly timed. "Merry Christmas, son. Enjoying the peace. Thanks, bro. Quiet day here." I even called in the evening, but the calls went to voicemail. I assumed they were just having a quiet day as planned, perhaps napping or deeply engrossed in a movie. I went to bed early, slightly sad, but looking forward to seeing them soon, perhaps delivering their gifts the following weekend. That assumption would prove to be my biggest mistake. Around 11 that night, unable to sleep in the unusual silence of my apartment on a holiday, I found myself mindlessly scrolling through social media. That's when everything changed. My cousin Tyler had posted a video, just 30 minutes earlier, with the caption, "Perfect family Christmas, nothing beats the holidays with those who matter most. Blessed family is everything." I clicked play without thinking, expecting to see Tyler with his girlfriend or maybe his immediate family. The video began with an exterior shot of a familiar house, my parents' home, decorated with twinkling lights and a glowing Santa on the lawn. I frowned, confused. Then the camera moved inside. What I saw shattered my world. The living room, far from being the site of a quiet, canceled celebration, was transformed into a festive wonderland I didn't recognize. A magnificent 7-foot tree stood in the corner, where our modest artificial one usually went, decorated with matching gold and burgundy ornaments that looked new and expensive. Garlands draped the fireplace mantel, and dozens of wrapped presents spilled out from under the tree. But it was the people that truly broke my heart. The camera panned around to reveal a full house brimming with familiar faces. There was my dad wearing the new sweater I had given him last Christmas, standing proudly as he carved a massive turkey at the dining table. The table was set with the good china, only used for special occasions, surrounded by aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't seen in months. Mom bustled around the kitchen, directing my sister Jessica as they arranged pies on the counter. My grandparents, the same ones I thought were still in Arizona, sat in the good armchairs, usually kept for special occasions, while various other relatives filled every available space. Everyone was laughing, eating, and celebrating. Everyone except me. As the video continued, Tyler narrated, "Annual Wilson family Christmas better than ever this year." The camera swept past the dining room into the kitchen, where I noticed something in the background that made my stomach drop. Hanging on the wall was a professionally printed banner that read, "Family Only Christmas 2023, in festive red and green letters. The words punched me in the gut harder than any physical blow could have. Then came the audio that confirmed my worst fears. "This is so much better than last year," I heard my sister Jessica say to someone off camera. "At least we don't have to pretend to enjoy Asher's fancy food and listen to him talk about work all night." A chorus of laughter followed, and my uncle added, "And no awkward gift exchange where he shows off how much money he spends." My mother, who I'd always thought of as my biggest supporter, nodded along. "It's nice to just be ourselves this year." I watched in horror as my dad raised a glass in the video. "To a perfect Christmas with the people who really matter," he toasted while everyone cheered. My fingers trembled as I took screenshots of the video, knowing Tyler might delete it once he realized I had seen it. I watched it 3 more times, each viewing revealing new betrayals. My aunt commenting on how nice it was to not have to trek all the way to Boston. My grandmother saying she was glad they didn't invite Asher this year because now they could really relax. My father looking more animated and happy than he had in years, certainly happier than he ever looked at the celebrations I hosted. The family I had supported for years, the people I had given everything to, had deliberately excluded me from their Christmas celebration while lying about canceling it altogether. They had coordinated a complex deception, ensuring everyone knew not to mention the gathering to me. They had spent money on new decorations and food, possibly my money, while telling me they needed to cancel due to financial concerns. I couldn't sleep that night. I paced my apartment, alternating between crushing sadness and building rage. The wall of family photos I had proudly displayed now seemed to mock me. Was I really that terrible to be around? Did my conversation about work bore them that much? Was my desire to give nice gifts really seen as showing off rather than generosity? How long had they been talking about me this way behind my back? Was I nothing more than an ATM to them? Did they ever appreciate anything I did, or were they just tolerating me for financial support? I replayed years of memories in my mind, now questioning every interaction. The grateful hugs when I paid bills, were they genuine? The family photos where I stood proudly with everyone, were they secretly wishing I wasn't there? The times they called just to check in, were they only setting up requests for money? By morning I felt hollow, as if something fundamental had been carved out of me. The foundation I had built my life on, my identity as the reliable, generous family member who took care of everyone, had crumbled overnight. What hurt most wasn't just the exclusion from Christmas. It was the deliberate deception, the coordinated lie that everyone had participated in. They had gone to great lengths to make sure I believed Christmas was canceled, all so they could celebrate without me. without the person who paid their bills. The morning after discovering the video, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. My team could handle the day without me, and I couldn't focus on code or meetings while my personal life was imploding. Instead, I called my best friend Michael, the only person I trusted to give me honest perspective. Michael and I had been friends since college roommates for 3 years, during the toughest part of my academic journey. He knew my family had spent holidays with us when he couldn't travel home, and had witnessed my transformation from struggling student to financial provider. "I need to talk," I said, when he answered. "Something happened with my family." I explained everything: the canceled Christmas, the video, the comments. As I spoke, my voice occasionally broke the pain still raw and fresh. Michael listened without interrupting, then sighed heavily. "Asher, I've wanted to say something for years, but you wouldn't have been ready to hear it. Your family has been taking advantage of you since the day you got your first good job." His words stung, but deep down I knew he was right. Michael had witnessed my family dynamics for over a decade. He'd seen how quickly my role had shifted from son and brother to personal banker. "Remember when we graduated and they threw that party?" he continued. "Your dad cornered me and spent 20 minutes talking about how your new job meant they could finally fix the roof. Not about how proud he was of your achievement, but about what your achievement could do for him." I did remember that party. I had been so excited to celebrate my degree, but somehow the conversation had quickly shifted to my parents' financial needs and how my new salary could help. "Think about it," Michael pressed. "When was the last time any of them asked about you? Not your job or money, but you. When did they last show up for you when you needed something?" I couldn't remember. When I had surgery to remove my appendix last year, no one had offered to come to Boston to help during my recovery. When I won the industry award for innovative coding 6 months ago, the accomplishment was acknowledged with brief congratulations before the conversation shifted to Jessica needing new tires for her car. But I could recall with perfect clarity every financial request, every emergency that required my immediate assistance. The pattern was so obvious now that Michael had pointed it out. After talking with Michael for over an hour, I spent the day reviewing my finances. I created a spreadsheet of everything I'd given my family over the past 5 years, categorizing each expense. The numbers were staggering. In the last year alone, I had spent $24,000 on my parents' mortgage, $8,000 on property taxes and insurance, $12,000 on roof repairs, $5,000 for my sister's car down payment, $4,000 on her student loans, $3,000 for various medical expenses for both parents, $2,000 for mom's dental work, $6,000 on last year's Christmas, $2,500 for dad's fishing trip with his brothers, $3,000 for household repairs and appliances, countless smaller amounts for birthdays, car repairs, and emergencies. The total exceeded $50,000, just in 1 year. Extrapolated over 5 years, I had given my family more than $250,000. The amount was shocking enough, but what truly disturbed me was realizing I could have purchased my own home instead of renting. I could have doubled or tripled my retirement savings. I could have invested in the startup my colleague had pitched, which had recently been valued at millions. Instead, I had funneled all that money into a family that apparently couldn't stand being around me. More disturbing than the amount was a pattern I noticed while reviewing the dates of transfers and requests. Financial requests always increased after I mentioned promotions or bonuses. When I bought my new car last year, a modest luxury sedan I had saved for Dad suddenly needed expensive car repairs the following week. When I talked about possibly buying a vacation property in Maine, Mom remembered the roof needed replacing immediately. I dug deeper, scanning through old text messages and emails. How had I never noticed that 90% of their communications with me involved money in some way, either thanking me for previous help, always followed by a new request, or directly asking for funds? The conversations rarely included questions about my life, my feelings, my goals. It was always about what I could provide. Then there were the canceled plans. 3 times in the past year, family gatherings I was supposed to attend were postponed at the last minute. A summer barbecue was rained out despite the perfect weather reported in Connecticut that day. A birthday dinner for Dad was moved to just immediate family due to a supposed scheduling conflict. Thanksgiving was scaled back because Grandma wasn't feeling well. Checking social media confirmed my suspicion. Those events had happened without me. Photos of the barbecue showed everyone enjoying themselves in the backyard I grew up in. Dad's birthday featured a restaurant dinner with extended family. Thanksgiving had included cousins and family friends. The most painful realization came when I found photos from my sister's birthday dinner 2 months ago. A dinner I was told was just immediate family, but which social media revealed included cousins, aunts, and friends. In one photo, Jessica posed with a designer handbag very similar to one I had purchased for her last Christmas. The caption read, "Birthday gifts from people who really know me." I wasn't family. I was the family bank. As anger replaced shock, I considered confronting them immediately. I drafted several scathing texts, even started an email laying out my feelings of betrayal. But a cooler part of my brain suggested waiting. If they had been using me all this time, I wanted to see how they would act now with the Christmas deception still unknown to them. So I waited, watching social media as more holiday photos appeared. My mother posted about the perfect intimate family Christmas with no mention of my absence. My sister shared photos of her expensive new gaming console, identical to the one still wrapped in my apartment, with the caption, "Best family ever." My father appeared in group shots, arm around my uncle, looking happier than I'd seen him in years. Not one family member reached out to me in the days following Christmas. No one asked how my holiday alone had been. No one suggested getting together soon. My mother sent a single text asking if I'd had a nice quiet day, but didn't wait for my response before mentioning that their water heater was making strange noises. No one, it seemed, thought about me at all, until they needed something. A week passed with no contact from my family beyond that single text from my mother. I returned to work, going through the motions while processing my new reality. Colleagues commented on my subdued mood, but I deflected with vague mentions of holiday fatigue. I removed the family photos from my desk and office wall, unable to look at the smiling faces that now seemed like masks. I spent New Year's Eve with Michael and some friends from work, forcing myself to celebrate despite the hollowness inside. At midnight, as everyone cheered and embraced, my phone remained silent. No traditional Happy New Year text from Mom, no drunk dial from Dad counting down the seconds. They were probably together at some family gathering I hadn't been told about. Then, as predictable as sunrise, came the text from my father on the 1st of the month. "Asher, hope you had a good holiday. Mortgage is due. Can you send the money today? Also, we had some unexpected expenses with the water heater. Could use an extra 1,000 if possible. Thanks, son." No. How are you, No? We missed you. Just a financial request, as if I were nothing more than an online banking portal. In previous months, I would have transferred the money immediately, perhaps even calling to check if they needed anything else. This time I stared at the message for an hour, my emotions cycling between hurt, rage, and resolve. This was the moment of truth. Would I continue the pattern, funding people who had excluded and mocked me, or would I finally break the cycle? I typed a simple response. "Did you all enjoy Christmas without me?" 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, reappeared. Dad was clearly panicking, trying to formulate the right response. Finally, "What do you mean? We told you we weren't doing anything this year. It was just a small gathering that came together last minute. Nothing planned." The lies continued even when confronted. The careful coordination of a house full of relatives with new decorations, full dinner, and printed banner was obviously not last minute. I replied with a screenshot from Tyler's video showing the family-only banner and the full holiday spread. More panic dots then. That wasn't what it looked like. We were just having a small dinner and people stopped by. "We didn't want to bother you since you're always so busy with your important job and fancy friends. You've seemed so distant lately, we thought you wouldn't want to come. Anyway, about the mortgage." The audacity of returning to the money request after being caught in such a blatant lie was the final straw. The gaslighting attempt, suggesting I was the distant one when they had been actively excluding me, crystallized everything. When he followed up with another text, "Can you help with the mortgage monthly? We're counting on you," something inside me snapped. I took a deep breath and typed the words that would change my relationship with my family forever. Ask the family you chose to spend Christmas with. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages. Dad called 6 times in a row. Mom sent a series of increasingly frantic texts about how I was misunderstanding everything and how they had always been there for me. Jessica chimed in about family obligations and how I was being selfish for the first time in my life. Not one message contained a genuine apology. Not one acknowledged the hurt they had caused. Instead, they all followed familiar patterns of manipulation I now recognized clearly. Denial. It wasn't a real Christmas gathering. Minimizing. You're overreacting to a small family dinner. Blame shifting. If you weren't so busy and important, we would have invited you. Guilt. After all we've done for you. Obligation. Family helps family no matter what. The manipulation was so transparent now that I could see it clearly. Every message hit the same notes: guilt, obligation, family duty. Not one expressed genuine remorse for excluding me or lying to me. Not one acknowledged how their actions had hurt me. When Dad sent, "After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us," I laughed out loud at the absurdity. What exactly had they done for me lately, except take and take? "What exactly have you done for me, Dad?" I texted back. "I've paid your mortgage for 5 years. I've covered every major expense in your life. I've given you and Mom over $250,000 while you haven't even looked for work." His response was telling. "We gave you life. We raised you. You owe us." The entitlement was staggering. In their minds, my financial support wasn't generosity or kindness. It was their due, something I owed them simply for being born. The barrage continued all day. Around evening, the tone shifted from guilt to threats. "If you don't send the mortgage money, we could lose our home. Is that what you want? We'll have to tell the whole family how you abandoned us without warning." I never thought my son would be so cruel to his own parents. Then came the messages designed to trigger pity. "Your father is crying. I've never seen him so upset. I might need to go to the emergency room from the stress you're causing. We won't survive without your help." I blocked their numbers, temporarily needing space to think without the constant emotional manipulation. For the first time in years, I put myself first, and surprisingly, it felt right. The next morning, I called in to work again, this time with a purpose. I had appointments to make and a plan to create. My first call was to my financial advisor, Mark, who had occasionally expressed concern about the amount of money flowing from my accounts to my family's. "I need to completely separate my finances from my family," I explained after outlining the situation. "I've been supporting them voluntarily for years, but I want to stop all payments immediately." Mark was professional but couldn't hide his relief. "Honestly, Asher, I've been concerned about this for years. Your retirement savings should be triple what they are now given your income. You're 32, but saving like someone who has a pension waiting. Let's redirect those funds back to your future." We spent 2 hours reviewing automatic payments, joint accounts, and credit cards. I discovered my parents had an authorized user card on my account that I'd forgotten about, with charges averaging $2,000 monthly for household expenses. There were automatic transfers set up for the mortgage, utilities, and various insurance policies. My sister's student loan was being paid directly from my checking account. The financial entanglement was more complex than I'd realized. It was as if they had gradually inserted themselves into every aspect of my finances, creating dependencies I hadn't fully comprehended. My next stop was a lawyer's office. I needed to understand if I had any legal obligations to continue supporting my family. The attorney, a straightforward woman in her 50s, listened carefully to my situation. "You have no legal responsibility here," she confirmed after reviewing my situation. "All support was voluntary. You can cease payments immediately without legal repercussions." She paused, then added, "However, prepare yourself for emotional manipulation and possibly social consequences. Family financial entanglements rarely end cleanly." Armed with professional advice, I spent the afternoon executing my plan. I canceled the automatic mortgage payment to my parents' bank, removed my parents as authorized users on my credit cards, changed my banking passwords and security questions, many of which had been answers. My family would know. Put a freeze. On my credit, to prevent any new accounts being opened, called all utility companies where I was listed as a guarantor, and removed myself. Redirected the money previously sent to family into investment accounts. Created a formal email, detailing my decision. That email was the hardest part. I wrote it carefully addressing the entire family. For years I have supported this family financially, covering everything from the mortgage to medical bills to everyday expenses. I did this out of love, believing we were a family that valued and respected each other. The events of this Christmas have shown me otherwise. While telling me that Christmas was canceled due to financial concerns, you held a family celebration without me. The video posted online made it clear this was not a last-minute gathering, but a planned event specifically excluding me. More hurtful than the exclusion were the comments made about me in that video. I now understand my role in this family has been reduced to financial provider, not valued member. Effective immediately, I am ceasing all financial support. This includes monthly mortgage payments of $2,000, utility bills, car payments, credit card access, medical expenses. 12. Any other financial requests. This decision is final. Should anyone wish to have a relationship with me moving forward, I require acknowledgement of how I've been treated and a genuine apology. I remain open to rebuilding relationships based on mutual respect, but not on financial dependence. Asher. I hit send and braced for the fallout. It came swiftly and furiously. Within hours, social media became a battlefield. Relatives I barely spoke to were posting about ungrateful children and family loyalty. My sister shared a tearful video about being abandoned without mentioning the years of support she had received. My father called my company trying to reach me after I blocked his number. The most telling response was from my mother, who wrote simply, "How are we supposed to pay our bills now? You know your father hasn't worked in 5 years. Not, we're sorry we hurt you. Not, we understand why you're upset. Just panic about the money stopping." It confirmed everything I had realized during my reflection. Extended family members I hadn't heard from in years suddenly reached out acting as mediators, but really trying to convince me to resume payments. My aunt called to tell me my parents had always been so proud of me, and that cutting them off was destroying them. My uncle suggested I was having a mental breakdown and should get help. A cousin I'd exchanged perhaps 10 words with in the past decade texted that I was tearing the family apart. I stood firm. For every flying monkey sent my way, I responded with the same question. What did they tell you about excluding me from Christmas while lying about canceling it? The uncomfortable silences told me everything. Most had been part of the deception, or at least aware of it. A few seemed genuinely shocked, having been told I was too busy to attend. Some relatives took my parents' side, unconditionally blocking me on social media and sending hurtful messages. Others remained neutral, uncomfortable with the conflict but unwilling to take a stand either way. Only Michael and a couple of work friends offered genuine support, understanding that walking away from toxic relationships, even familial ones, was sometimes necessary for self-preservation. Throughout the barrage, I maintained my boundaries. I didn't engage in arguments or justify my decision beyond my initial email. I didn't respond to emotional manipulation or guilt trips. For the first time in my adult life, I put my own well-being first. And despite the chaos, I felt strangely at peace. The first month after cutting financial ties was the most difficult. My parents received their mortgage late notice and the panic escalated. My sister couldn't make her car payment and blamed me publicly on social media. My father left increasingly desperate voicemails on my work phone since I had blocked his number on my personal cell. "Your mother cried all night," one message said. "Is that what you wanted?" "The bank is threatening foreclosure," came another. "We'll be homeless because of you." "I never thought my own son would turn his back on his family," a third declared. "What did we do to deserve this?" The question was so lacking in self-awareness that it would have been funny if it weren't so painful. What had they done? Only excluded me, mocked me, used me, and lied to me, apparently seeing nothing wrong with any of it. The tactics evolved as desperation grew. My mother claimed she needed emergency surgery. She didn't. A quick call to my aunt confirmed she was perfectly healthy. My sister said her car was repossessed. It wasn't. Social media showed her still driving it. My father said he might take his own life, a manipulation tactic he'd used before when I tried to establish boundaries around lending money to his brother. Then came the character assassination. Family members told mutual friends I had suddenly cut my parents off without warning after years of promising to support them. The narrative painted me as unstable, selfish, and cruel. Some distant relatives even claimed I had gambling or drug problems that explained my sudden irresponsibility. The rumors reached former classmates, neighbors, even colleagues who had connections to my hometown. The truth, however, began emerging in unexpected ways. My grandmother, my father's mother, showed up at my apartment one Saturday morning in February. At 82, she had taken a train from Connecticut to Boston by herself, determined to understand what had happened. I almost didn't answer the door, assuming it was another family member coming to guilt me, but the security camera showed her standing alone, looking small and uncertain. "Grandma," I said, genuinely surprised as I opened the door. "You shouldn't have traveled all this way alone." "Some things need to be done in person," she said, firmly walking past me into the apartment. "And I needed to see you for myself." We sat at my kitchen table, steam rising from the tea I prepared. She studied me with eyes that had seen 8 decades of family dynamics. "Your cousin showed me that Christmas video," she said finally. "I had no idea they told you the holiday was canceled. When they invited me, they said you were too busy with work to join us." I showed her my text exchanges with my parents and the spreadsheet of financial support I'd provided over the years. Her hands trembled as she reviewed the numbers. "They told everyone you helped occasionally with small bills," she said, voice quivering. "I had no idea you were paying their entire mortgage, or that Robert hasn't even been looking for work." "He hasn't been job hunting?" I asked, though somehow I wasn't surprised. "Not seriously," Grandma confirmed. "He plays golf 3 times a week with his friends. Nancy complained to me about it just last month, how he's content living on your support while she still has to work." That conversation was a turning point. Grandmother returned to Connecticut and apparently shared the truth with select family members. Within days, the tone of some relatives shifted. My cousin Tyler removed his Christmas video and called to apologize for his role in the deception. 2 of my aunts sent thoughtful messages acknowledging they hadn't known the full story. "We were told you were too busy with your important Boston life to bother with family holidays anymore," one aunt wrote. "I should have questioned that more, knowing how family-oriented you've always been. I'm sorry." Meanwhile, my parents faced the consequences of their actions. Without my support, the financial house of cards began collapsing. I learned through my grandmother that Dad had not been actively job hunting as he'd claimed, but had settled into early retirement at my expense. They had not saved any of the money I provided for emergencies, but had been living beyond their means. The medical emergencies that required my financial assistance were often elective procedures or entirely fictional. Mom had taken expensive vacations with her sisters while telling me they couldn't afford basic necessities. Dad had purchased a timeshare in Florida last year without telling me while I was paying their mortgage. Most shocking was discovering they had been receiving rent from my sister for the basement apartment while I paid the mortgage that kept the house standing. They had effectively been profiting from my generosity while complaining about me behind my back. 3 months after cutting ties, I received an unexpected call from my Uncle John, my mother's brother and a financial advisor. He asked to meet for coffee, and against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop, halfway between my office and his. "I helped your parents review their finances," he said, looking uncomfortable. "They asked for my help after the mortgage went into delinquency. Asher, they have options they never explored because it was easier to rely on you. Your father qualifies for early retirement benefits. They can downsize their house and eliminate the mortgage entirely. Your mother could pick up additional teaching hours." He slid a folder across the table. "This is what I presented to them. They have a path forward without your money. I wanted you to know that." I reviewed the documents, a detailed financial plan showing how my parents could live within their means by making reasonable adjustments. They wouldn't maintain the exact same lifestyle, but they wouldn't be destitute either. The knowledge lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying. They told people you left them penniless, my uncle admitted. But that's not true. They just need to live like normal retirees instead of expecting their son to fund an upper-middle-class lifestyle. That conversation brought me an unexpected sense of relief. My family would not be homeless or destitute without me. They had options. They had simply chosen the easiest one using me. As I focused on rebuilding my own financial future, the monthly money I had been giving my family now went into investments and my own home down payment fund. Mark, my financial advisor, projected that I could purchase a property within a year if I continued saving at the current rate. For the first time since graduating college, I felt financially unburdened, able to plan for my future rather than financing everyone else's present. The emotional healing took longer than the financial reorganization, but each day brought more clarity and peace. I started seeing a therapist to work through the complex feelings of betrayal and guilt. Dr. Abrams helped me understand the dynamics that had led to my role as family provider and how to establish healthier relationships moving forward. You've been defining your worth through what you can provide materially, she observed in one session. That's a pattern you learned in your family system, but it's not serving you. Some family relationships were permanently altered, while others began the slow process of rebuilding on healthier terms. Jessica never acknowledged her part in the deception, continuing to portray herself as a victim on social media. Some extended family members still believed I had abandoned my parents without cause. I learned to accept that not everyone would understand or support my decisions, and that was okay. 6 months after the Christmas incident, I received a letter from my mother. Unlike the previous communications focused on money and guilt, this one contained something new: accountability. My mother's letter arrived on a warm June morning, nearly 6 months after the Christmas that changed everything. The pale blue envelope contained 3 handwritten pages in her familiar, neat penmanship. Asher, I've written this letter a dozen times, struggling to find the right words. There are no right words for what we did. We excluded you from our family Christmas while lying to your face, took advantage of your generosity for years, and never properly expressed gratitude for all you've done. When confronted, we thought only of ourselves and what we were losing, not how deeply we hurt you. I am truly sorry. Your father isn't ready to admit his role in this, but I can no longer live with the deception. We became dependent on your support and began to resent you for it, a twisted psychology I'm trying to understand with the help of a counselor. Rather than appreciating your generosity, we began to expect it, then demand it, then feel entitled to it. The Christmas celebration without you was wrong on every level. There's no excuse for our behavior, though I've tried to create many. The truth is painfully simple: we behaved terribly toward the person who has given us everything. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know that at least one of your parents recognizes the harm we caused and is genuinely sorry for the pain we inflicted. With love and regret, Mom. The letter wasn't perfect, but it represented the first step toward genuine accountability. I waited a week before responding, discussing the development with Dr. Abrams in therapy, before deciding how to proceed. I agreed to meet my parents at a neutral coffee shop near my office. When they arrived, I barely recognized them. They looked older, more tired. Dad had finally found part-time work at a hardware store, making less than half his former salary, but contributing something. Mom had taken on summer school, teaching for additional income. We've had to downsize, Mom explained, stirring her coffee nervously. We sold the house and moved to a small condo. The mortgage is affordable on our combined income. Your sister has taken a second job too, Dad added. She's managing her own car payments now. There was an awkward silence before Dad cleared his throat. Look, son, maybe we got a little too comfortable with your help, but we're still your parents. Family helps family. Mom shot him a warning look. That's not why we're here, Robert. She turned to me. We're here because we miss our son and want to make things right. I listened more than I spoke, gauging their sincerity. Mom seemed genuinely remorseful while Dad fluctuated between contrition and entitlement. When they inevitably steered the conversation toward reconciliation, I was direct about my boundaries. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, but with clear conditions, I told them. First, I will never provide financial support again. Not a loan, not a gift, not a penny. Second, complete honesty moving forward. One more lie and I'm gone for good. Third, I need time and space. This won't be fixed in one coffee meeting. Dad started to protest, but Mom placed a hand on his arm. Those are fair terms. We accept them. They agreed, though I could see the adjustment to our new reality was difficult for them. The power dynamic had fundamentally changed. They were no longer the authority figures directing our family relationships. We were now adults negotiating boundaries as equals. Over the following months, our communication remained limited but improved in quality. We met for lunch once a month, carefully avoiding discussions of money. Dad often seemed uncomfortable not quite knowing how to relate to me without the financial aspect of our relationship. Mom made more effort asking about my work and friends, showing interest in my life beyond what I could provide materially. Our conversations no longer revolved around their financial needs, but instead focused on genuine connection. Sometimes it felt forced and uncomfortable, but occasionally I caught glimpses of what a healthy parent-child relationship might look like. We shared stories from our weeks, discussed books or movies, even laughed together over shared memories from when I was younger. Not all family relationships could be salvaged. My sister continued to portray herself as the victim, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. She posted cryptic messages about toxic family members whenever I established boundaries. Eventually, I stopped following her social media altogether, removing that source of negativity from my life. Some extended family members still believed I had abandoned my parents without cause. At a funeral for a great uncle, I overheard an elderly cousin referring to me as the selfish one who cut off his poor parents. Rather than engaging or defending myself, I simply walked away. I had learned that not everyone would understand or support my decisions, and that was okay. My self-worth no longer depended on family approval. The most important relationship I rebuilt was with myself. Through therapy and reflection, I recognized patterns in my own behavior that had enabled the exploitation. My need for family approval and connection had blinded me to their manipulation. My desire to be needed had allowed them to use me. My avoidance of conflict had prevented me from setting boundaries sooner. Your generosity wasn't the problem, Dr. Abrams told me. It was the lack of boundaries around that generosity. Giving from an empty cup isn't sustainable. I established new traditions with chosen family, friends who valued me for myself, not my wallet. I spent the next Christmas with Michael and his family, experiencing genuine warmth and inclusion that highlighted what had been missing from my own family gatherings. We cooked together, exchanged thoughtful but inexpensive gifts, and played board games into the night. Not once did anyone ask me for money or make me feel I needed to buy affection. Financially, the change was dramatic. 6 months of investing the money previously sent to my family resulted in significant growth in my retirement accounts. I put a down payment on a small condo of my own building equity rather than paying someone else's mortgage. I even took my first real vacation in years. A 2-week trip to Japan I had always dreamed of but deferred while handling family emergencies. The most valuable lessons came from reflecting on the experience. True generosity should empower others, not enable dependence. By continuously rescuing my family from financial consequences, I had prevented them from developing their own resources and resilience. Real help sometimes means allowing people to solve their own problems. Real family supports your growth, not just extracts resources. A healthy family relationship involves mutual support, emotional, practical, and sometimes financial, but never constant one-way giving. True love wants the best for the other person, not just what can be gained from them. Helping from a healthy place means having boundaries. Generosity without limits isn't sustainable. Setting clear expectations and limitations around assistance preserves both the giver's well-being and the recipient's dignity. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop rescuing people. My family didn't develop financial responsibility until necessity forced them to. By constantly stepping in, I had robbed them of the opportunity to develop self-sufficiency. Being needed is not the same as being loved. I had confused my family's dependence on me with genuine affection. Their distress when the money stopped wasn't about missing me, it was about missing what I provided. Most importantly, I learned that respect is a non-negotiable foundation for any relationship, including family. Love without respect is just manipulation wearing a convincing mask. No amount of shared history or genetic connection justifies continuous disrespect or exploitation. Today, a year after that devastating Christmas discovery, I have a smaller but healthier family circle. Some relationships have been rebuilt with clear boundaries, while others proved unsalvageable. I found peace with both outcomes, recognizing that family can be both biological and chosen, and both forms require mutual respect to flourish. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd never seen that Christmas video, if I had continued funding my family's lifestyle indefinitely. The financial cost would have been enormous, but the cost to my self-respect would have been incalculable. In a strange way, that painful revelation was a gift, one that freed me from an unsustainable pattern and allowed me to build a life based on genuine connection rather than financial obligation. I have no regrets about standing up for myself, even through the pain and conflict it caused. The person I am now, stronger, wiser, with healthier boundaries, couldn't have emerged without that difficult journey. Have you ever had to make a tough decision about toxic family relationships? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest growth, and I'd love to hear your stories. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to support more real conversations about family dynamics. And if you know someone struggling with similar issues, share this video with them. It might give them the courage they need to make necessary changes. Remember, it's never too late to set boundaries and prioritize your own well-being. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to stand up for yourself when necessary.